how long were you suffering?
I had a disease called trigeminal neuralgia, which I had never heard of before, and I describe it to people as firing of a nerve on my face that feels like a dentist has hit the wrong nerve without anesthesia. And it came randomly, but I was driving or walking or eating or whatever, and I suffered before I saw you, for about 3 or 4 years. But there was a drug that the neurologist gave me called trileptal, which is used for seizures, and it worked to stop the pain for the first 3 years. And then, a couple months before I came to you, the drug stopped working, and I was having the pain constantly, and it was more severe and it was more frequent. And I was at the point where I could only eat through a straw because I couldn't move my lips. I didn't want to go outside because a slight breeze might cause the nerves to fire. And I was in just unbearable, excruciating pain. And so my neurologist said I had 2 choices. I could have a surgery where they opened up my skull and put a piece of felt at the base of my brain to try to block the nerve from coming into contact with anything. And he said it may or may not work to stop my pain. And even if it did work, my face might be paralyzed. My other choice was gamma knife radiation, which I was afraid of because I'd done research on radiation in connection with another surgery I'd had before, and I really didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go that route. Plus, there was also no guarantee that that would work. So I asked my neurologist about alternative treatments, and his response was, don't waste your money. You know, for people who suffer from this disease and for whom the drugs stop working, it really is a life or death thing, because you cannot live. You can't see people, you can't eat, you can't do anything. You just live, you know, between episodes and hope that it's going to be a longer time next time.
It must be excruciating. It must be
horrible.
Mentally, you know, when the pain does go away, and you're kind of waiting for it to come back.
Oh, it's horrible. But toward the end, it was coming back 6 or 7 times a day. Yeah. And, you know, I'm a cancer survivor, and cancer was nothing compared to trigeminal neuralgia. I wouldn't.
You know, I've had that. I've had cancer patients say to me, you know, I mean, cancer survivors, obviously, but, you know, sometimes they've had migraines with cancer. And I think when you have a pain like that totally consumes you, you know, when you think of cancer and how tough cancer can be, to actually say, this is worse than cancer.
I would rather have cancer.
You'd rather have cancer
than
trigeminal neuralgia.
Meanwhile, I was in too much pain to do almost anything, so I searched on the computer and came up with a link to Atlas Orthogonal, which I'd never heard of before, and found out that you were the only person in the city with a machine. And it was Columbus Day, and I picked up the phone, and you answered the phone. And I don't know how well you remember it, but I basically begged you to see me that day. And that was the beginning of our treatments. And after maybe 3 or 4 weeks, my pain never came back again. And that was 8 years ago. So I'm happy about our anniversary.
When you went back to the neurologist, what did the neurologist say?
I'm in remission.
Right. That's a long time to be
I've been in remission during the course of the disease in its early years, and I knew it wasn't remission because I felt better. And if it's remission, it's an awful long remission.
So do you still remember the pain?
Yeah, every time I get in the shower and raise my face to the water, I remember it, because I could never do that. I could never even think of doing anything like that when I had the pain.
Well, what did it feel like?
It felt literally the closest thing I can I can compare it with is when if a dentist hits a nerve, except that as the disease progressed, it would last longer. So, that nerve would be firing for, I don't know how long, but probably about, 5 to 10 seconds each time.
Of severe, like a stabbing pain.
Severe, so that I had to stop whatever I was doing, and it was actually dangerous to drive.
So would you ever link your neck to the disease?
I never would have thought that it had anything to do with my neck, and the only reason I came to see you was that I was desperate, and on the website of all the conditions listed that Atlas Orthogonal helps, they listed trigeminal neuralgia, so I thought, this is worth a try instead of brain surgery.
And I still remember, when you first came in, I was saying to myself, there's no way I'm going to help this woman.
Yeah, you said you weren't sure, but
Yeah.
you said you'd be able to, you'd tell me whether or not you could help. You weren't sure you could help, but you'd be able to tell me
Right.
whether or not.
Right. And, I think it was after the first adjustment, I said, wow, this may work. I mean, I was a young doctor at the time. I was, I've never treated anybody with trigeminal neuralgia. And so when I adjusted you, there was a lot of change. And I remember you saying, I think I feel differently. And, it's amazing, to see you how you are versus when you walked in here. It's just a totally different person.
Yeah. And
I guess understanding the disease, you understand that you're not yourself and you can't even function with that disease.
I barely remember even any consciousness other than walking in here, and it seemed all dark to me, and I just sat in a chair waiting for you to come out. But I knew immediately after the treatment that it was helping. And I remember we referred to my pain as twinges. And every time I saw you, it was, how many twinges have you had? And over the course of a couple of weeks, it was very few twinges, and then finally none.